Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott Baker, and I am the Chief Curator of the Art Gallery here at Howard University. The Art Gallery here at Howard is basically three connecting rooms. Behind me is the James V. Herring Gallery. The next one is the James A. Porter Gallery of African American Art. And the third gallery, the largest one, is named for two distinguished professors, Lois Jones and James Wells. The gallery here at Howard started in 1870, and it was created by the founder of the university himself, Oliver Otis Howard, who was also in charge of all of the freed slaves right at the end of the Civil War. The art gallery began with gifts to him, since he knew a lot of prominent people. It consisted of portraits, photos, engravings, and most of all, a gift from his friend Alexander Gardner, the famous photographer of his Civil War images. Now, art was first taught at Howard in 1868. And by 1892, Harry Bradford incorporated it in the Teachers College. A milestone in the university history in art occurred in 1901. Photography was introduced, and it was taught by Professor Holmes, and the catalog of the university of 1902 was the photos were included in that catalog. 1914, Lula Childers came to Howard and taught chorus and sight singing. Art at Howard really took off in 1914. The president of the university, Stephen Newman, actually taught art history. By 1908, architecture had become an established part of the university by William Hazel, and by 1917, Mr. Buckner, William Buckner, taught drafting and architectural design. The eventful years, 1915 to 1925, were events at the university that helped all of the areas of fine arts. People like Leo Hansberry, Alain Locke, even Dr. Charles Wesley, who wrote about Henry O. Tanner in 1920. Benjamin Briley, he was an English professor, but he also developed the theater department. And Kelly Miller, who's in our collection, was the person that really lobbied for a Negro museum in 1918. By 1921, Albert Cassell was named architect of the university, and he hired James Herring. 1922. Mr. Herring, in 1 year, developed his department into an art department, which is also documented in the 1923 Bison. Sculpture was introduced in 1922 by May Howard Jackson. Watercolor painting was introduced also by Gwen Bennett in 1924. And by that time, we had our first art graduate, Albert Thomas. 1926 was a very, very significant year for art at Howard because it was the first time there was a professional mission statement about the art department published. Also, of course, in 1926, Mordecai Johnson became president of Howard, and it really took off very well with him. By 1927, the next year, James Porter graduated, and two of our prominent professors who helped develop the entire department, Lois Jones and James Wells, both came in 1930. Mr. Herring was very influential during the WPA era around 1935 because he was the one that produced over 3,000 slides for the WPA to produce and introduce people around the country. Dr. Rett, Franz Rett, who was an escapee from Nazism, became
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Keep going. We might be able to edit it.
Okay. Dr. Franz Rapp declared art history as a major in 1940. That same year, Cook Hall was very significant to the entire art community because it was designed by two African-American architects, Paul Williams and Hilliard Robinson, and Lois Jones completed a mural for the inside club room on its opening in 1940 also. By December of 1941, the art gallery moved from Rankin Chapel to the library. And by World War II era, it's interesting to know 32 out of 83 art students were drafted into the military. By 1942, there was a 75th anniversary show in the gallery, which was billed as the greatest show of Negro art ever. Every one of the 75 artists were not African Americans. So it became a great integrationist achievement. By 1953 to 1960, the university received $17 million for a building campaign, thanks to President Johnson. Unfortunately, Dr. Locke passed in 1954, but his estate of art and writings was given to the gallery. By 1960, this building, Childers Hall, opened, and with it came the Crest Collection of 1961, and the College of Fine Arts began. One of the great significant things of that time was the first BFA by Yvonne Carter, 1962, and the first MFA by Lloyd McNeil in 1963. Professor Porter celebrated the centennial of the university in 1967 with two things. One was another great African-American exhibition. This one was called 10 African-American Artists of the 19th Century. Very educational and very eye-opening to the public. That same year, he and his wife, Dorothy Porter, purchased one of our great works in the collection, Forever Free. Unfortunately, James Porter passed in 1970, and Huey Lee Smith was acting director. By that same year, Dr. Jeff Donaldson was named chairman of the art department, and he declared photography as a major. He expanded African art by hiring faculty and also having exhibitions of African art. By 1988, the gallery moved from its own, by 1988, the gallery moved to its own establishment as part of the arts and sciences. Dr. Floyd Coleman, at that time, established the James A. Porter Colloquium of African American Art, which is an annual symposium every year, which he started in 1990. I'd like to conclude by just saying what we're doing today. Today, we are doing great things, and we are continuing to do great things with the collection. That's documentation, conservation, appraisals, and valuations of the entire collection, which runs almost 4,000 items. In 1996, we were named one of the 50 best college galleries in the country. Our most recent achievement was just a few months ago when we installed one of our works from the collection, the bust of Frederick Douglass by Isaac Hathaway, in the office of the Vice President of the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I really thank you for your attention. I thank you for your attention.